Good evening, and welcome to Pressing Issues. I'm your host, Jason Diffendahl. Today is Sunday, May 2nd, 2021. How's everybody doing out there tonight? Welcome back to another Sunday evening episode of Pressing Issues. Glad to be back after my week off last week. Before we go any further, let me introduce our panel for tonight. We have Desi.
Aloha.
We have Ashley.
Hi.
And we have Stephanie.
Hi, everybody.
So this episode is going to be a special episode because Desi just got back from Aulani. And so she's going to tell us all about it. She sent me a bunch of pictures to show while we do that. And then we'll talk about a couple other things like Disneyland opening. But Disneyland opening is going to be the main topic of our show next week. It was kind of difficult to have our Disneyland people on because they're all in Disneyland. And with a 3-hour time difference, they're still there. So we're going to talk to them next week all about Disneyland. But for this week, we've got our trip report from Aulani. I've got some things to talk about, having just gotten back from Walt Disney World, and can talk about some crowd issues and park pass issues and things like that. And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Jurassic World VelociCoaster that just opened at Universal Orlando. So let's get started. Desi, why don't you tell us about your Aulani trip? Now I have pictures to put up, and I will put them up when you tell me to put them up.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and get started, and then everybody else can chime in. And I'll put the pictures up when you let me know.
Okay. Well, this wasn't my first time to Aulani. I have been there before because I have family on Oahu, but I had never actually stayed there before. So I've been there. I took my wedding photos there. I have been there for dinner multiple times, but I've never actually stayed on property, mostly because I have family there, so why would I pay to stay at Aulani when I've got a free place to stay over on the other side of the island? So because I have family there, I thought, I'll just ask my grandparents if I can get the Kama'aina discount, because Kama'aina means local. And basically, they give them 50% off of rooms. However, they have to be there staying in the room with you, and my grandma wasn't into that idea. So it was just the four of us. We tried going the DVC route. We're not DVC members, but we tried buying DVC points, and I was talking to Patrick on Discord in our WIGS community. Shout out to the WIGS. And he said basically for the cost of the points, it wasn't going to be any different than just buying the room outright from Disney. So that's what we wound up doing. Not ideal. Disney is expensive. Hawaii is expensive. A Hawaii resort in Disney is very expensive. But I would say that when I do stay on property here in Florida, I tend to either go one way or the other. It's either I'm staying at the All-Stars just because I want a room to stay in and I want the extra magic hours and I plan on spending my entire time in the parks, or I'm like Savannah View or Theme Park View in one of the deluxe resorts because I want to actually stay and enjoy the resort. And I would say that Aulani is definitely the stay and enjoy the resort kind of place. And it's on the lee of the island, which has a lot less to do than the rest of the island. So the windward side gets more of the rain. It's the more lush side of the island. The leeward side is typically your browner, rockier side of the island. But I guess kind of luckily for us, maybe not so luckily for the locals, it had flooded about a week or two before we got there. Lots of rain, and so it was very green and lush while we were there. But it's not typically that green and lush. And I would say the first thing I feel when walking into Aulani, and as somebody with, family in Hawaii, and I've grown up, it felt very authentic. It wasn't cheesy, but it was still Hawaiian, and it wasn't like your typical hotel. So, for instance, we also went to the Hilton Waikiki, and those rooms, the hotel, there is some Hawaiian theming, but it's your basic Hilton. It's not like you walk in and you feel like this is Hawaii the way that you feel at Aulani. And that, I think, is the best part about being there. And it's not like the IP slaps you in the face either. There are some hidden Mickeys in the patterns. There's, Jason, if you want to show the Mickey lamp in our room, that was the only actual Mickey that I saw, other than actually the character meet and greet Mickey.
There you go. Oh, wait. Somehow she got muted.
IP in our rooms. Are we good?
We good. You got muted.
Okay.
But now you're back. Yeah.
And so, no, there wasn't a lot of IP everywhere. There was the one Mickey lamp in our room. There were some hidden Mickeys in like a Hawaiian pattern. And then the one other IP that I saw, Jason, you can show this picture, is Stitch. There was like a wooden Stitch carving. And that was the only IP that I saw on property that was kind of slapping you in the face, Disney. Everything else was very subtle, very cute, very Hawaiian. So that's definitely the best, how authentic it felt. A wedding photo of my husband and me in the lobby that shows what the hotel is like. So there we are. Aww. But that's a picture of the lobby, and it's just beautiful. It's stunning. One of my favorite resorts here in Florida is the Polynesian, and this just blows the Polynesian out of the water. It doesn't even compare. The Polynesian, I would say, definitely has more IP, feels a little hokier, whereas Aulani definitely feels authentic.
So
and then,
let me ask a question. This kind of goes back to when you were talking about the DVC point. So isn't part of the resort is DVC and the part of it's not DVC, right?
Right.
And so you got just a regular room. You didn't get one of the DVC rooms, or did you get a
Correct.
DVC room?
No, I just got a regular room.
Okay. So I imagine the regular rooms are like DVC studios, I guess, for the most part. Like, was there a fridge or a microwave or anything in your room, or no?
There was a small refrigerator, but no microwave.
Okay, so it's pretty much like a regular hotel, like a Polynesian room. Whereas
Yes,
the DVC.
but I would say that the theming at Aulani rooms are better than the theming at the Polynesian rooms,
I can
especially
imagine.
now. I would say, talking about slapping you in the face with IP.
Yep. No, very true.
That's kind of what the Polynesian is doing now.
Very true.
And
Can I interject really quickly?
Yeah, Go ahead.
About the DVC rooms. So when we went pre-COVID, obviously back in 2016. We stayed in a one-bedroom, and it's very similar to the setup of, say, like the beach club or, the Boulder Ridge. So it has the full kitchen and, but it does have a split bathroom. I will say that has the tub that kind of overlooks, there's a window into the master king size, and then a pull-out queen, and then the fold down underneath the TV. So I agree with you. I don't think IP is not in your face. It's really well done. But I will say there's a difference between an ocean view and an ocean front. We got an ocean view, one bedroom, and I was thinking, oh, we're going to be right on the end. No, it's ocean front, and those are much more expensive. So.
We got we had paid for a standard room, but the way our room happened to be was kind of on the end on the side, so we could see on one side the mountains and then on the other side the ocean. So I loved having that view, being able to see both.
That's
I mean,
cool.
I did have the parking lot kind of in the middle, but still I got to see mountains and ocean.
Yeah, that's neat.
Cool.
That is neat.
What floor were you on?
We were on the 8th floor.
Okay, so pretty high up, enough to see over the trees
when
and
we
stuff.
when we were checking in, we just asked the cast member if we could have the highest room available. So that's why she put us in number 8.
Cool.
And I would say that my one huge complaint, and I don't know how much of this is Aulani and how much of this is just the state of Hawaii, but the check-in process was a nightmare, especially because of all of the COVID stuff. The line, it took us like an hour to check in, waiting for everybody. Everybody, before you get to Hawaii, you have to have a negative COVID test. You have to fill out a form. You have to get a QR code that basically says that you're healthy. And for them, they have to go through all of that paperwork and make sure that every single person is good to go at check-in. So that part was not ideal. And so by the time we were done checking in, pretty much all of the activities were done for the day. There were no more characters to meet. There were no, the Menehune trail that they had. It's kind of like you go searching for these little, I guess I would liken them to like a Hawaiian version of a leprechaun. They're little mischievous characters that are magical. So there's like for kids, they give you a tablet and you go around the resort and try to find these little menehune. So that's fun. But that was done for the day. The characters were done for the day. But overall, I would say that I thought that Aulani was awesome. My kids especially loved the Menehune Bridge, which is the basically kids' water area. So they had like slides, they had like buckets of water that just dumped on you periodically. It's pretty similar to what you would see at like a Blizzard Beach or Typhoon Lagoon kids splash area. And of course the views at the back of the hotel are stunning. They're gorgeous. The food, I would say. So I have been to Aulani before, like I mentioned, and when you go to the buffet, the makahiki, during normal times, the food is just average. I would say it's kind of like if Ohana and Cape May Cafe had a baby. That's what the makahiki is. It's kind of Hawaiian food, kind of seafood, but they do have that awesome bread pudding. There was no bread pudding for dinner, which was my one big complaint. But the food now, it's a fixed price menu. It's not a buffet. It's not all you can eat. But the food quality is much better than what you got when it was a buffet. And there were no character meals, but I was told that as of May 1st, which is that today or yesterday?
Yesterday.
No, yesterday. As of yesterday, They should have brought characters back to meals. So unfortunately, we missed that, but supposedly they have character breakfast now. Um, if you want to show a picture of us meeting characters, they had characters basically every 30 minutes. They switched out. So we saw Duffy and Shelly Mae, which there was no line for. So our kids basically just stood there and waved at them. There was a small line for Mickey and Pluto, and that was only like right at the half-hour mark when they showed up. So we waited like 5 minutes to see Mickey and Pluto, and then after that line cleared out, they were just kind of standing there and walking around. And the nice thing about this is that they did have a PhotoPass photographer there to take photos of you. You weren't allowed to take your mask off for the photo like you are here at Disney World, but there's no PhotoPass photographers for the characters here in Florida. So that is kind of one nice thing, because in Florida we can see Mickey and we can wave to him, but there's nobody there to like take a picture with us. I mean, it's not like we can go up and hug him, but it's better than nothing. And yeah, oh, my kids love Duffy and Shelly Mae. Especially because we were the only ones there while they were there, so we kind of were just running around and waving to them, and they loved it. They did not understand the whole "you must stay behind this little rope" that we've got here, because they were 1 and 2. But they loved seeing the characters, and when my son saw Mickey come out, he just screamed, "Mickey!" So excited. So it was nice to be able to see characters, even if it was kind of in a weird environment, not being able to hug them or anything. But it was still a great experience, and my kids loved it. One other thing, speaking of, Ohana and the Polynesian versus here, is probably my favorite drinks at Ohana. Well, not Ohana, but at the Polynesian, so at the Tambu Lounge, would be the Lapu Lapu or the Back Scratcher, both of which they had, although they called it something else. The Back Scratcher was called like the Tropical Itch or something like that, which I prefer the term just Back Scratcher, because Tropical Itch doesn't sound that appealing. But they were so expensive. That Lapu Lapu was $30. So I maybe
drink every drop.
How can that be?
Was it a heavy pour? Like, I hope at least.
I mean, it was filled to the top. I felt good afterward, but it was, maybe I just haven't been to the Polynesian in a while, but I'm pretty sure it's not $30 there.
I don't think so.
It's not. I know for a fact that the highest priced drinks on property are at the Enchanted Rose at the Grand Floridian, and they top out at $25. Yeah. Although maybe when I don't know what they are at Tambu, but I'm pretty sure they're not $25 at Tambu.
Yeah.
It
was delicious. It looked very pretty from my picture.
Were the drinks the only thing that was expensive? Like, was the dinner expensive?
So the dinner, I would say, it was a fixed price menu. I think it was around $50 a person. So really, for Disney prices and for Hawaii prices,
that's not too bad.
Not terrible.
Too bad. The only thing that really shocked me was that Lapu Lapu drink. And it wasn't called a Lapu Lapu. I don't remember what they called it. But that's just what I call it, because that's what I'm used to calling it from the Tambu Lounge. And then they had shave ice, which was about $5, or maybe it was around $4. I don't remember. But it was $1 extra if you wanted the Mickey ears on it, which who's not going to buy the Mickey ears? Of course, if I'm going to Hawaii and I'm going to Aulani, I want the Mickey ear shave ice.
At least
but
one.
It was delicious, and it was adorable. They did have Dole Whip. I did not buy the Dole Whip there because I figured I can get Dole Whip at home. And we also went to the Dole Plantation while we were there, so there was no reason for me to get Dole Whip at Aulani. But they did have it. And can't think of anything else to tell you guys, but I had a great trip. Unfortunately, it's probably our last trip to Hawaii because my family is moving here to Florida to be closer to us in July. So it was kind of a last hurrah, and that's why we definitely wanted to hit up Aulani one last time.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's go through some of your other photos that you sent, because you sent a whole bunch. Let's see.
I wasn't sure what I was going to say when I was sending them off to you.
But I mean, you could
the lazy river. Oh my God, the lazy river was amazing. It was so relaxing that my son actually, he's 1, so he can't swim yet. So he was just sitting on my chest and he fell asleep. And that's how he took his nap that day, was he just fell asleep and we took a nap on the lazy river. It was amazing.
Wow. How would you compare the lazy river to, I'm sure, well, I don't know.
Like Typhoon Lagoon or something.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's smaller.
It is smaller. I feel like every time I go to Typhoon Lagoon or Blizzard Beach, it feels gross to me. I don't know if that's just because of it's usually crowded, and Aulani didn't feel that crowded. I think probably because of all of the restrictions because of COVID. So you can see here, like, most of the time when we were in the lazy river, I didn't see anybody else around me, so it felt more relaxing than when I'm at Typhoon Lagoon or Blizzard and I've got like a mid screaming on me.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Absolutely.
And it's also, it winds around a lot more, I think. There's not so many straight paths in it, and it's covered in foliage, so you really do feel kind of isolated, and it's really nice. Goes through under the volcano.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, this is just when we first checked in, getting ready to go down to the pool. We had a great time. We loved it. I wish I could stay there forever. It was beautiful. Here's from the 8th floor. So
oh wow,
not out of our room because our room was on the end, like I said earlier, so I could see the ocean and the mountain. This was like basically in the elevator, the view.
So would this be called a pool view, or is this an ocean view because you can kind of see the ocean way in the back there?
I don't see it would be
probably a pool view.
Ocean view.
Okay.
In the lobby, my kids understand the mask thing, kept wanting to pull them off of us. And we were required to wear face masks the whole time unless we were obviously in our room or in the water. So I think they have those same restrictions at Blizzard Beach.
Yeah.
In Typhoon Lagoon.
Yeah.
But if you're just walking around or just sitting there,
on the beach,
you gotta have your mask on.
Did you have, so like when you're down by the pool and everything, did you have to like carry your mask with you in the lazy river in case you got out?
No. I did not carry my mask with me in the lazy river. I would probably get drenched because there is a part where you kind of go under a waterfall.
Yeah.
But I just kept it like on the same chair that I had my clothes and towel on, and so when I got out, then it was there. But also, when I got out, I typically ordered a drink, so I didn't have a mask on because I was actively drinking.
How crowded was the pool area like overall?
It didn't feel that bad. And again, I don't know if it's just because it was COVID that it was fairly empty, or if it's because it's such a huge place that there's a lot of places that people could go to that weren't just necessarily in the areas that I was hanging. The one thing that I was a little disappointed about because is that there were a lot of things. So there were a couple restaurants closed. There was Auntie's house, which is the kids club, that was closed. So I couldn't leave my kids anywhere, and spa or
I mean,
like
you
the adult
could, just not legally.
I could.
By themselves.
I left them and said, "Hey, just hang out here for a little bit. Mom's got a massage." No,
So
unfortunately, but I wish that I could.
when we were there, we didn't experience Auntie's beach house until the very last day, and I could completely agree with you, Desi. I think it's a place that you can go and just stay. You don't have to get out and go anywhere else because Disney has everything there already, and I wish that we had done that earlier. And of course, we had all the restaurants were open to us. There was a very nice upper scale restaurant at the end, and I can't remember the name of it, but we ate at the breakfast, the character Ama, that's it. And we ate that, I think, at our last day there, and it was really good. But yes, I agree with you. The buffet, was mediocre, but the characters are great, obviously. When we were there, we had Donald greet us, and then we had, of course, Stitch and Mickey and Lilo, I think, were the ones inside. And they also interact with the mini Hoonies. So there's a kind of an MC, and he goes around with the kids and he says, shake this little, maraca kind of tambourine thing or whatever, and the mini Hoonie will do something, and the bush will shake in the corner or something like that during your meal, which was really neat. And then I agree with you, the mini Hoonie Adventure Trail, my kids loved that. It's a scavenger hunt. They give you an iPad that you check out, and you go to each spot, and there is mini Hoonie magic that happens. So the kids answer a question, and then the torch lights up, and they're like, whoa, what is that? Or they go to another spot and they answer a question, and then the sea turtle moves inside the little cave or something. So the mini Hoonie magic. The thing I would say about the beaches and the chairs and everything, when we were there, I want to say we were in there September 2016, and I think that the hotel was only like 20 to 30% capacity, so there really wasn't very many people. But the same kind of situation when you go to a water park. All the chairs up near the pool fill up the fastest and then stay that way. And of course by the kids area too. And so on the beach, same situation, the closer to the water, they filled up really quickly. The area, the beaches, I believe, unless they've changed it, there's a rule in Hawaii that it's all communal. So it's not just Aulani's beach, but there are other resorts. I think the Four Seasons is next to them, and they share that. But anybody can come and use that beach. And what's really nice is that they've created like a barrier towards so there's a alcove basically where the waves come in, but they're not really, really strong. They die out further. And so you can paddleboard and do all that. But it is communal. So you'll see people there that are not actually staying at Aulani, which is interesting.
Yeah. And the nice thing about the beach too is being on the left of the island. That is the side of the island that gets sunset. So the sunsets there are beautiful. And one more thing that I want to mention is that this is one of Joe Rohde's projects, and I would like to say shame on anybody who voted for Captain EO for being one of his better projects than Aulani.
The level of accuracy and historical and cultural significance is akin to Animal Kingdom Lodge, I think.
Yes.
He did an excellent job. But that white building in the picture, that's the Four Seasons, isn't it?
Right. They're the same beach, like you said. But Aulani has the better view, in my opinion, because it's more centered on the beach.
So is what we're looking at here sort of from this outcropping all the way around to the Four Seasons? That's the extent of the Aulani Beach?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's not enormous.
No, it's not.
No.
Which I could understand it getting crowded when the hotel's crowded.
This picture is from June when I got married. Not this past June, but like pre-COVID times, and it still is at sunset. that crowded. So
It's gorgeous. I'm not
it's
gonna lie. I started looking at rooms.
a prime location.
'Cause I want to go.
Baby moon.
They do
Oh,
have
right.
the they do have PhotoPass photographers that will take your picture, like the fine art photography that they have at Disney World. They do that there as well, or at least they did when we were there, and you can take your sunset pictures on the beach.
Oh, that's cool. That's nice.
That is neat.
So I assume you spent time on the beach and the kids loved it and all that, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Kids love the beach probably too much. Kept wanting to run to the water. They're
Yeah.
like Moana.
Did you do this? Did you do the snorkeling?
No, because, our kids are only 1 and 2, so there was no way to really do it safely. Because even if one of us went snorkeling at a time, it's hard to wrangle a 1 and 2-year-old by myself. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All right. There's a couple other. Well, there's at least one other picture that I didn't show yet.
I will say that the leeward side of the island also has
Aw.
some of the best scuba diving. So I have scuba dived over there, but not snorkeled. Yes, this is my 1-year-old. He loved it. My little Mickey fan with his lei. And neither of my kids look like me at all. They both look like their daddy. With that blonde hair, they don't look like mommy.
All right. So I think that covers all of the pictures of Aulani you sent. Now you did some other things in Hawaii while you were there, and I know there's some people in the chat asking about excursions. Oh, we did get one really important question in the chat. Were there any Disney cats there?
No, no cats.
Do they have cats in Hawaii?
They have mongooses. So, fun fact, there are no snakes in Hawaii, but they are overrun by mongooses. Or mongoose. I don't know.
I never knew that.
I guess if you don't like snakes, it's a good place to go.
Yeah. There's a lot of Ricky Tikki Tavis running around.
But then, so you did send me a couple other pictures. So we're going to show some of those, and you can tell us about some of the other things that you did while you were in Hawaii. Apparently, you visited Jurassic Park.
This
me.
is Stephanie's picture.
Oh, that's Stephanie's picture.
That's us. Yeah, that's me holding the 2-month-old, and then we had our other
Oh
three
yeah,
kids in
there's
there.
more than 2 kids in that picture.
Oh yeah.
Very high tech. So that's at the Kualoa Ranch where Desi got married, and we went on the tour, and they filmed. So most of Jurassic Park, this is the original 1997. It was filmed
Wait.
on. That's Desi's picture.
That's
But it was
Desi's
filmed
wedding.
in Hawaii. Except for the one scene where Grant and the 2 kids are hiding behind that old tree trunk where I think it's Compsognathus or whatever it is that's running over it. There's like a herd, and then they're chasing. And so that's what they do is they make you go down there and take the picture next to the log, and then they say, be afraid. And it's very high tech, right? They stick this little dinosaur toy right in front of and take a picture. But Desi got a more digitally enhanced one.
So it's actually kind of funny. We were watching Jurassic World, and I said to my husband, that looks a lot like where we got married. And so we looked it up, and sure enough, yeah, they did film part of it there at Kualoa Ranch. And other movies that were filmed there, the Jumanji movies with The Rock, and Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, and 50 First Dates. Basically, any movie that takes place in Hawaii showcases those mountains just because they're so beautiful.
And we are big Lost fans, and they have a big
Lost
on the
was filmed
tour. They
there,
have
too.
a movie tour.
Mm-hmm.
Lost was filmed there, so you get to go inside the bunker.
Yeah, I love it. That spot right there is where we got married. So
It's somewhat
so
picturesque.
beautiful, and
Pretty.
somehow
It's just a little
like a
picturesque.
quarter of the price of getting married at Aulani. So that's why we got married there, and then
Yeah.
just took the wedding photos at Aulani.
But it's definitely something that's a must-do.
Absolutely.
So how far is this from Aulani then?
This is pretty
It's a
far from
drive.
Aulani. This is, I want to say it's about as far away from Aulani as you can get.
I agree.
But it's still a fairly small island, so maybe an hour and a half.
Now, is
so
that on like
It's
the
not
super
terrible.
highway, or is that on little back roads?
I wouldn't say that Hawaii has a super highway, but
It's interstate,
I guess
sort
it's
of.
the most highway-ish you can get
Okay.
to get there.
The other question I had, and you made me think of it by saying about as far as you can get. How did the kids do on the airplane?
We actually got
yeah.
compliments that our kids were really well behaved. So I don't know what I did to be so lucky, but they actually were totally fine. They were either asleep or watching Toy Story the whole time, so they were
Wow.
fine.
You
Nice.
didn't have a direct flight from Florida, did you?
No, we flew to Houston and then Houston to Honolulu, and then on the way back, we flew Honolulu to Denver, but then we had missed our flight because there was a delay. So we missed our flight directly back to Florida. So then we had to go to Chicago from Denver and then to Florida. So on the way
Oh,
back
wow.
was kind of a nightmare because it took
Yeah.
us like 24 hours to get home. But the way there was not so bad.
Wow.
We had flown out to California first and went to Disneyland for a few days before we flew. So we had a flight from California straight there. But same to us. We had, let's see, our twins were 5. We had a 2-year-old and then a 2-month-old. 2-month-old just slept on the plane the whole time, basically. And the 2-year-old was the one that would run up and down the aisles, but it didn't seem to bother people. I did do the new mommy thing where you take the little baggies with an apology note and it has a little bit of candy, and I set them on all the chairs surrounding us first. I said, I'm sorry,
What
this
a
is the
good
first time we're
idea.
flying this long. So, and then,
Oh,
you
that
know,
is a
of
cute
course,
idea.
you put in the earplugs as well. So candy and earplugs and a little apology.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that next time.
Good to keep in mind.
All right, so there's a handful of other pictures that you sent in, and one of them is the swamp ghost, which is not a scary
Yes.
thing. It's an airplane.
It is an airplane. Yep. So the Swamp Ghost is an airplane that basically was stuck in a swamp from World War One, and anytime people flew over it, they said it looked like a swamp ghost. And so Disney and the Pacific Aviation Museum, or I think they're called the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum now, collaborated to make this Donald Duck design in honor of this swamp ghost plane. And Disney, of course, in World War II, sorry, did I say one before? In World War II, helped create a lot of the artwork that was on the noses of a lot of the planes. And Donald Duck was a big part of the propaganda campaigns that Disney did for World War II. Walt was in World War I, but only at the very end. So, sorry, I meant World War II before. And I'm wearing my Swamp Ghost shirt right now.
Oh.
I don't know if you can see it.
Hang on.
Oh,
Yep,
cool.
there we
Cool.
go.
So, a little bit of Disney, Hawaii that's not me.
So this airplane was in a swamp for a long time, and then they like yanked it out and put it in this museum.
Yep. And my grandfather, at least for the next couple of months still, is a docent at the museum. So he got to take us right up close to it. So
Cool.
it was pretty awesome.
Oh, that is cool.
All right. Are there any Any other questions from the chat for Desi about Aulani or Hawaii? I was trying to pay attention as we went.
I definitely think that Pearl Harbor is a must-do for sure, and Dole Plantation, of course, and a Kualoa Ranch, and maybe Sea Life Park, like you said, 51st Dates, filmed there as well. You can do
Yes.
the dolphin encounters. So what other? Now, did you? I guess that the luau at Aulani was not operational. We did the
Correct.
one over
It
at
was closed.
the Pacific Islander Cultural Center, and it was interesting to say the least. It felt it was huge, number one, tons of people, and it felt very 1960s, a little, just the music choice. So I wish that we had stayed and did the luau there at Aulani. So I would
Yeah,
just
I
throw
wish
that
that
out
I
there for
had
anybody
seen
that's wanting to go.
the Aulani one too, but it was closed. I've done the Halikoa, which is the
Oh, I think she froze.
Oh,
did I freeze?
You did.
Hello?
Now you're
yeah.
back.
Am I back?
You're back.
You're
Okay.
back.
We went to the Hilton Hawaiian Village Luau while we were there with the kids and enjoyed it. I would say the food isn't awesome, but it's still a good show. I don't know about the Aulani one. I've heard that the Aulani one it goes from like old school Hawaiian to more contemporary, so it wouldn't be stuck in the 60s like the one you went to, Stephanie.
The cultural center is amazing because it has all the like original buildings and everything, and it's sort of living history. But if you don't spend all day there and you just go for the show, you're a little bit disappointed. I thought.
Yeah.
Um,
I haven't done the Polynesian Cultural Center since I was a kid. We did like a Circle Island tour with the kids, but by the time we got to the Polynesian Cultural Center, they were asleep. So we decided to just keep driving.
Oh.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: for somebody who hasn't been to Hawaii but wants to go someday, like how long, like for your first trip, how many days would you say should like a trip be to be able to see all the must-dos?
I think if you're going to take that long of a flight, you have to go for a minimum of 1 week. It's a long flight to get there, and if you're not going to be there, I would never fly for that long and take that much time to only be there for like a long weekend. So I would go a full week, if not two.
I agree. We were there for 5 days on Oahu, and we spent 3 days on the big island of Hawaii so that we could do the helicopter tour over the lava flow into the ocean. So we actually did both of those and flew out from there.
I have been on the Big Island and I've been on Maui, but my husband has never been to any island other than Oahu, and he's been like 5 times now. So now that my family isn't going to be living more, if we go back to Hawaii, we'll probably go try out the other islands.
Okay.
So one thing that I'm kind of surprised about, because some people said this in the chat, and you said it a couple times too, talking about the food not being great, and I'm a little surprised. Is there good restaurants in Hawaii, or is all of the food just kind of mediocre? Or is it like you have to get fish, and if you try to get a hamburger, it's going to be worse, but the fish is good, or something like that?
Kalua pork.
Oh, she
And
froze
Desi's
again.
froze again.
But you said Kalua pork?
Kalua pork is a
good?
safe bet because it's good. It's like the pulled pork,
God.
barbecue pulled pork. There you
Now
are.
she's
Okay.
back.
Oh, good. Yay. I think that just luau food in general is probably not that great just because it's banquet food, so they do it in bulk. So it's not great. And Hawaii, I would say, is never spam. So if you're a big fan of spam, You'll love it. They have spam and
that
rice
could be
on the
a problem.
menu at McDonald's. But there are
Yes.
great restaurants. So the original Roy's is there. The what's up at Disney Springs? Morimoto. There's a Morimoto's that's amazing. I prefer the Morimoto's in Hawaii to the one at Disney Springs, but I still love the one at Disney Springs.
I prefer anything in Hawaii to anything at Disney Springs. and I've never been to Hawaii. All right, so I think, yeah, that looks like I think we got all the questions out of the chat.
Oh, Emmett did ask a question. Which luau would you say is the most authentic?
Oh man,
None or
I have none of the ones that I have been to have been 100% Hawaiian. They've all been Hawaiian, Samoan, New Zealand mixed. So they've been Moana-ized, if that makes sense, where it's Polynesian blend.
all right. Well, that's a
Cool.
yeah, that's a pretty good trip report there for us. Thank you very much. Sounds like
I'm
you had
happy
a
to
good
go
time.
back.
I mean, I think probably it would be best if we send a different panelist back next time. And I volunteered already, so sorry, Ashley. But it also sounds like it would make sense to not go, especially if like you're only going to go once in your life. It would make sense not to go till everything's kind of back to normal, and you can experience
Yeah.
everything.
I agree.
Yeah. Hawaii is a lot stricter than Florida is in general with the whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, it is an island, so that kind of that makes sense.
Something else that I found to be really interesting is the location. So we drove from the airport, and it's basically in a gated community that sort of reminds me of like a golf community.
Mhm.
So you drive through like a
does.
gate initially, and it was really interesting to me. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting, but there's some good restaurants across the street too. You can walk across the street, and there's a little bodega and get your groceries and things, and then there's some restaurants there too.
Allison in the chat said she's going next year, and will be happy to be on the show and give us a report.
Nice.
So yes, thank you, Allison. Let me see. So it's almost about time for a break. I didn't really see a lot of calls for Spike the Bee though, so I'm gonna have to go find a different commercial to play. So you'll have to give me a minute to find a different commercial.
Ink and paint.
I was gonna
yeah.
say,
Yes.
yeah,
All right, well let me find it.
shameless plug.
But yes,
That's right.
that's a good plug. All right, so so as I said at the beginning, in case you missed the beginning, Disneyland opened obviously this week. We're not going to talk about it this week simply because we don't have any of our people available because they're all at Disneyland. Because Disneyland is open till 7 o'clock, and they're still there. And I don't know if anybody caught the live stream. If anybody caught the live stream, Katie did a live stream from Disneyland just before we came on. Here's the ink and paint. Okay, cool. So we can play ink and paint. All right, so we're gonna play this commercial, and then we're gonna take a little break. We'll be right back.
Ink and Paint celebrates the voices of women talking about what it means to be a Disney fan. Co-hosts Ashley Jasmer and Jill Diffendahl will join a panel of female Disney fans to discuss topics ranging from Disney princesses as role models, to raising Disney kids, to park-going preferences. Join us every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on the WDWNT Entertainment Channel for lively discussion, stories, and debate about living your best Disney lifestyle.
All right, there you go. So that was a bit of a short commercial, not enough for any of us to run anywhere. But yes,
Right.
Ink and Paint is coming next week. Is that right, Ashley?
No, this Thursday.
Oh, it's this Thursday. Okay.
This Thursday.
This Thursday at 7:30 p.m.
Yep.
Is the premiere episode of Ink and Paint. It's over on WDWNT Entertainment, as the commercial said, so make sure you head over there for that. Now we see all the bees. Great.
Yeah.
But yes, Ashley's co-hosting along with my sister Jill, and Desi and Stephanie. You're on the staff of the show, right? So.
Yes.
There's a lot of bees in the chat, and so here's what I'm going to say: we need to get 100 likes. If we can get 100 likes, bless you.
Sorry.
If we can get 100 likes, I will play Spike the Bee at the end of the show. So you guys have another hour or so to get 100 likes. You need, oh geez, we just got 5 in like 30 seconds. 36. Oh, no, okay. I'll play it at the end. If we hit 100. Anyway, all right. So, a couple of other things on the agenda for tonight. As I said, Disneyland opened. Katie's in Disneyland. She just did a live stream. She's going to be on next week. And also Rob is going to be on next week. Rob from California. And I think Allie is going to be on. Another one of our Disneyland reporters is going to be on. And all three of them will have gone to Disneyland if they're not already there. So, yeah, the next week will be all Disneyland talk. So we'll see how things are going. But in the meantime, check out, I mean, we've got tons of coverage yesterday and today and live streams and everything. If you can't wait till next week to hear us talk about it, you can go watch all of our coverage. The other thing before we get to the ranty part of things, let's talk about Universal's Jurassic World VelociCoaster, which had pass holder previews today. It had team member technical rehearsals the past couple days, and I know we got some pictures from some of the team members that were there of the queue and everything, and then
video.
Our very own Eric and Tom and Annie were there today. We're not going to talk about any spoilers because none of us have been on it. We can't get Katie on tonight. She's still at Disneyland. She's got another. Tom gave her a list of like 42 things she needs to cover at Disneyland, and they don't close until 7 o'clock Pacific time. So she's got an hour to like finish checking things off her list. But she'll be on next week. No spoilers because none of us have been on VelociCoaster. But Tom and Eric and Annie were there, and Axel. I just think it's kind of cool that it. I'm just going to read this from Nico the Greco. It was confirmed by Allison through Jill that Jason only likes ranting, arguing with Tom, classic Epcot, gadgets, and chocolate.
Yay, chocolate.
Yes. Anyway. So yeah, the VelociCoaster opened. Universal basically built an entire roller coaster from the ground up during COVID, and Tron Light Cycle Power Run is delayed and won't be open by the 50th. Like it was
not even the
supposed
first
to.
one.
Even though
But
it's not the first one, they didn't have to design anything. They just had to shoehorn it in, which VelociCoaster's shoehorned in too, pretty much. But yeah, it's delayed. So there you go. That's all I really want to talk about with VelociCoaster. Otherwise, there's plenty of video, queue walkthroughs, photos, everything at Universal
Can we
Parks
say
News Today.
two positives about it? Because I watched the Q video, and two things that I was really impressed by, without doing major spoilers.
All right, people who don't want any spoilers, plug your ears for a second.
Yeah, well, these
ahead.
aren't really spoilers for the attraction, and I won't even say what they are. But they put up attraction posters in the lockers.
Yeah,
room,
which is really cool.
which
Yes.
are really cool. Like, they are classic looking posters. So when you do go, be sure to check those out because they're really cool. Like, they're actual attraction posters and then like from the movie attraction posters, and it was really cool attention to detail. And there was a lot of attention to detail in the video that Annie took of the queue. So shout out to Annie for getting that. And the other thing was they finally came up with the most genius thing ever, which is double-sided lockers.
Yes.
So you're not tripping over people trying to get your stuff out while other people are trying to get their stuff in.
So
Was
I
it
don't,
really?
I don't know, I don't know who was on, but we talked about this several months ago. I think when I talked about
I remember
Hagrid's.
this.
When I talked about Hagrid's, and I'm like, why didn't they just build double-sided lockers? And then I went to see if there's a patent on double-sided lockers, and there was. So I knew that I wasn't the first to come up with the idea. But yeah, it's a genius thing, and they finally figured out how to do it.
And it is. Like, I'm so impressed. I hope they go back and they implement that other places.
Well, they just built a whole new
especially,
locker building for Forbidden Journey, and they blew that chance.
Well, whatever they could do there, because that one was hands down the worst. Because you had not only lockers, but like the gift shop, like that was a nightmare.
Yes,
trying
very
to
congested.
manage. And Hagrid's isn't a whole lot better, but it's a little better.
Hagrid's is terrible because you have to like cross the line to get to the locker after
and then,
you come
get
out.
back in line. It's weird.
It is. It's absurd.
But no, I give them huge props for figuring that out.
Finally
and hopefully
figuring out double-sided lockers. Yep.
they figure out better implementation for the other ones going forward, because that will eliminate a lot of annoying headaches.
And maybe the whole reason that Tron is delayed is because they're redesigning the queue to put in double-sided lockers. That's probably it. I bet that's it.
It's so funny that you think that they're going to do free lockers like that.
So let me tell you. So when I was in Shanghai and rode Tron, there were like 10 banks of lockers, right? And they're like the sort of sizable lockers, like at, the parks and stuff. They didn't use them. What they did was they had like a bin on wheels that had like, I don't know, like it was like a big laundry bin with like compartments, and there were like 6 compartments. And so they had a bin, and like the first 2 cars of the coaster put all their belongings in one compartment, and the next 2 in the next compartment, and they told you where to put your stuff. And then you got on the ride, and then when you got off the ride, in the meantime they wheeled the bin over to the exit, and so you could pick up your stuff on the way out. And it was kind of absurd, and I have no idea why they did that.
Is it just because the lockers still weren't big enough? Because people were carrying, like, backpacks or something?
No, the lockers were plenty big. The lockers were plenty
People
big.
just didn't want to use them?
It wasn't that crowded, so maybe it was just more hassle than it's worth, or I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, they didn't use them at all. Like, you couldn't even use them if you wanted to. They were, like, roped off.
Weird.
So, but anyway, so that's, so I bet they're putting in double-sided lockers at Tron. We'll see. We'll see if Disney catches on to the genius idea that Universal had. All right.
Is the queue themed in Shanghai?
Yeah. I've never watched a video for Tron, I'll be honest.
I've only seen the actual coaster itself. I've never seen what the queue looks like.
I mean, it's kind of themed. Like, here's my question to you: is Space Mountain's queue themed? Because Tron's queue is not much more exciting than Space Mountain's queue.
That's depressing.
There's not a whole lot. I mean, what's a Tron theme other than like blue lighted up lines around on the floor and stuff?
And techno music.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot to see. There was a cool part of the queue where there were windows that you could see down into the load area of the coaster and the launch, which is really cool to watch. But I wouldn't call the queue themed, no.
I thought the coolest part of the video on the VelociCoaster was how you could see the launch of the coaster and then the raptors came behind it. That was awesome. That was so neat. And I also have a theory. Okay, so you know where their lights are orange and then they turn to a blue color and you hear the Velociraptor sounds, then they go back to orange. So do you remember that there was that mythological creature kind of section of Islands of Adventure, and there was a dueling dragons roller coaster,
Yes.
fire and ice?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, and this is just a theory, just coming from my head,
because they were red and blue.
As
Yes,
a nod
they were
to-
red
is that a
and
nod
blue.
to that?
Maybe.
It could be. It very well could be.
I mean, so Hagrid's was
I had
built
not
on the
noticed
site of
that.
Dueling Dragons, and I
Yeah.
think
Right.
there's some nods to Dueling Dragons in Hagrid's queue.
There is.
But
but I wouldn't
Jurassic,
be surprised because
obviously,
that's not super far away from
no,
where
it's
it
the next
was.
land over.
No.
It's the next
Yeah.
land over. Yeah, maybe.
Dinosaurs, dragons, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good theory. I don't know. I'll have to check it out. Going back in June, so I'll check it out and let you know. See if I can figure
Cool.
anything out. All right, so we're gonna just ramble on for a bit for the next half an hour or so, and then the last 20 minutes of the show will be the positive issues section of the show. So fair warning to all of you: think up something positive to say.
I already
I
called
used
mine.
mine.
Oh. Well, shucks. Okay, then I guess I just got to rant for an extra 20 minutes at the end.
No, I have one. I just want to make sure that nobody else steals it.
Okay.
No, you called it. You called it.
So I will. I want to talk a little bit about my trip last week, and I know David talked about some things, had on the agenda some things about transportation and park passes and things like that. And so I'll just talk a bit about my experience last week and what weird things I think are going on. So we got there on Thursday. We flew in Thursday morning. And so the best part to go to when you don't get up early in the morning or you're not in Florida early in the morning is Epcot, because they don't open until 11. So we went to Epcot and we basically had lunch at the Flower and Garden Festival. Had some festival favorites, which were good. It wasn't crowded at all. It was almost like dead on Thursday at Epcot. Like there were no lines for any of the food booths or anything. But so then Saturday, let's see, Friday we went to the Magic Kingdom. Oh, Saturday we didn't go to a park because we didn't have a park pass. Monday we had a park pass for Studios, and then at the last minute, we got a park pass for Sunday for Epcot. So we went back to Epcot on Sunday night, and it was dead on Sunday night. And I got a Le Cellier reservation for 4 at 9 p.m. on Sunday night.
Really?
Like 2 days in advance.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't even know how that happens. But the way the crowds were on the weekend compared to the weekdays. So every time that I've ever been to a Disney park, it's always more crowded on the weekends because the locals have the day off and there's plenty of them to come on the weekends. Now during the week, some locals come, but people that go for a week's vacation generally go during the week, and you know they're traveling on the weekends, and so the locals go on the weekends, and it makes things really, really crowded. That's been like the way Disney has been forever, right? It was backwards. I don't understand why, but we went to Studios on Monday, and it was packed. It was absurdly packed.
It might also just be the difference between Epcot and Studios, because in general, when I go to Epcot, it's less crowded than when I go to Studios.
So we were in Magic
Is it just
Kingdom
the way
on
they're doing the
Friday.
numbers?
We were in Magic Kingdom on Friday, and it was packed. And then Tuesday we went back to Magic Kingdom, and it was packed. But Sunday at Epcot was totally empty. And this is kind of what we've seen, like from our reporters and things. And here's what I think the weirdness is going on. So remember way back when the Park Pass system was first rolled out. This is like last July, right? When the Park Pass system was first rolled out. And annual pass holders could make 3 park passes. And then when they used one, they could make another one, right? So you could only hold 3 at a time.
Isn't that still the case?
It is still the case, yes. But back then, there was talk, and only right at the beginning, there was talk that pass holders who made a park pass and then didn't actually use it would somehow get penalized. Right? This was part of the, maybe it wasn't like official, but this was like speculation, that pass holders that would make a park pass but not use it would somehow get penalized or not allowed to make 3 or whatever. I don't know, something. Like we had either thought that was the case or heard something that was the case.
I mean, it kind of makes like logical sense.
Right?
You don't want
Yeah.
people just holding passes that they're not going to use.
And so, but that was our suspicion or speculation right at the beginning when Disney opened in July. But then nothing ever happened. Like we never saw anything like that happen. Well, now it's almost a year later. It's 9 months later, and most all of the locals, I think, have been back to the parks at least once or more, right? And so there's not the urgency to go to the parks as often as you can anymore if you're an Orlando local with an annual pass. And so what I suspect is happening is that pass holders are making park pass reservations for weekends and then not using them. And this is happening a lot. And so, because if you look at the park pass calendar, it's all booked up, right? Like park passes are booked up full for a week or 2 or whatever out. It's booked for the weekends and it's booked for the weekdays, right? And so because pass holders can only make 3, but people with resort reservations can make them for the length of their resort reservation, and anyone who makes a resort reservation is likely made it weeks or months in advance when there's still park pass availability, right? So you figure that anyone who has a resort reservation has made a park pass, and then whatever's left over, the annual pass holders book up closer to the date. And what I think is finally now happening is that annual pass holders are booking the park passes for the weekends, but they're not actually going. They're like basically saying, let's book a park pass so that we have it, and then we'll decide later if we want to go. Kind of like it used to be before park passes existed, where, if you were a local, you could say, well, we'll see if something comes up on Saturday, and if not, then we'll go to the parks. Or maybe if the weather's nice, we'll go, but if it rains, we're not going to go. Well, I think what's happening is that pass holders are making those park passes, especially on the weekends, and then sort of last minute deciding, that they don't want to go. So they're making the park passes just to have them, and then they decide, and they're much more likely now than they were months ago to decide, well, we're just not going to go because there's nothing new anymore.
I will say that I do have a park pass for the next 3 weekends in a row. And I might not go every weekend, but I do know that if I decide not to go, that I'm taking up that spot for somebody else. So I'll make up my mind at least a couple of days in advance, and if I know that I'm not going, then I'll cancel it.
Right.
And I think most pass holders know to do that. The other thing I'm thinking, if you're saying that the parks are emptier on the weekends, it's not necessarily that the pass holders aren't going. If they're like me, they go for a couple hours, have some fun, and go back home. So they're not spending all day there
Yep.
All day.
like somebody who's there for their vacation.
That's very true too. That's very true too.
That
And
is
they're
true.
probably, and they might very well be spending less time there now than they used to months ago. Again,
Yeah.
because there's not
We'll
really
go
anything new, right? So
have dinner, come back home.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I think that's probably I think that's very likely that the pass holders aren't staying as long as they used to, or they're park hopping or whatever. But I'm sure that there's some pass holders that forget to cancel them.
Mhm.
And
Or just don't decide until the morning of for whatever
Yep.
reason.
And certainly I know for a fact that there's people that cancel them, because I pulled a park pass for Sunday for Epcot like 10 p.m. on Saturday. So people are definitely canceling them the day before because they open up and you can get parks if you just have to, it takes a good while to sit on the app and refresh to see if you can get one, but they come up. They absolutely do.
And Epcot specifically is the easiest one to get into. So
Yeah.
what a lot of pass holders do, I think, is they'll book Epcot, run in, and then leave as soon as 2 p.m. hits to
Right.
go to
Right.
a different park.
Yep.
To what they want.
Because there's the least to do there. Yeah,
Yep.
I've done it. I've booked a park that I didn't want just so that I could get in and then go to the park that I actually wanted to go to.
Yeah. And
I
Epcot
think
not opening till
that
11
a lot.
makes sense. So yeah, so I think there's but the common thread in all of these things is the park pass system, right? Like this didn't happen before the park pass system,
No.
because there were always plenty of people willing to go, head over, and if the lines were long, either you wait or you turn around and go back home. But now, because of the park pass system, you can't just do that. You have to have a pass. And realistically, whatever the number of park passes are that are out there, I think in like July and August, when the capacity was like 25%, almost 100% of the people that had park passes went. It was just really uncrowded because there weren't enough park passes
Capacity was
to
low.
go around, right? Capacity was low. Now the capacity is like 50 or 75% or whatever. Like Chapek won't even tell us what it is nowadays. Maybe it's like 110%. I don't know. Spring break was kind of nuts. But now that the capacity is much closer to 100% capacity, I think a lot less than 100% of the people that have park passes are using them. Or like you said, they're not staying in the parks all day. Because now the parks are open longer too, right? Like Epcot's open till 10 p.m. on weekends. So maybe they're not spending the whole day at the parks. And so what it does is it really makes the crowd levels kind of, like I said, it's more credit on the week, during the week than on the weekends, because I think during the week it's vacationers and tourists who are there for the whole week and staying at the hotels, and are going to spend a lot of time in the parks. And then on the weekends it's locals who aren't staying on property and are only going to pop in for a little bit to go grab some of the really fantastic avocado toast at the Sunshine Griddle. Formerly the Donut Box at Epcot. Was like the number one festival food that we had last weekend. So it's really weird. Put it that way. It's really weird. Obviously there's solutions to this, like the penalties for not using or not canceling a park pass. Whether Disney wants to implement that or feasibly can actually implement that because of the way the technology is built, I don't know. I mean, it just came out. So literally, like last week while we were in Florida, the news came out that Disney is finally canceling park passes for people that make a hotel reservation and then make a park pass and then cancel the hotel reservation. Finally, Disney caught on that people are doing that. And using the park passes. So now they figured out how they can cancel the park passes if you cancel your hotel. And
now that to me is something that should be penalized. Like I don't know. Like even though I'm not a local, like I get it. If you're a local, you make a park pass, and then if something comes up and you can't go, I don't know that you should necessarily be penalized unless it's like a recurring thing, like maybe 3 strikes and you're out type of deal. But I don't think you should be automatically penalized just because you made a park pass one time and then you got, I mean, anything could have happened. You could have gotten called into work. You could have gotten sick. Like anything could happen.
Right.
But I think the people who knew full well what they were doing by taking hotel rooms, booking park passes, and then canceling the hotel rooms, they should absolutely be penalized because you knew full well what you were doing. You were cheating the system.
So the problem is that Disney didn't have a way to do it. Like it took them 9 months to figure out how to actually do that, which is absurd. But I mean, obviously it took them this long because they would have done it sooner if they could have.
Right. I just think it's unfortunate that we're still having to use this system, only because I understand the logic behind it. But at the same token, with capacity what it is now, I don't fully understand why it can't just be a roll of the dice, just like it is on like Christmas or New Year's.
Or at Universal for that matter.
You roll the dice when the park hits capacity. And again, it's happened before. It happens every year pre-COVID, at least Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July, like those big holiday days. The parks would hit capacity, at least Magic Kingdom, and would close and have to go to phase closings. I don't understand why they can't just do that now, because people are kind of gaming the system, and because we don't know what the numbers are, it makes it so hard to judge. And like you said, you went to Magic Kingdom during the week thinking that, it'll be a little bit lighter, we can actually enjoy Magic Kingdom, and it was packed. Like, you can't make an intelligent decision anymore about what parks you want to do or what you're even getting yourself into, because you just don't know, even though there's the system and you should be able to gauge, if all the passes are gone.
Right.
But to your point, that's still not accurate because people can park hop, they could just not show up. To me, that makes it more difficult than if you just rolled the dice and said, well, sorry, Magic Kingdom hit capacity today at 10 o'clock. You're SOL and have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, go somewhere else, right? And so here's another example of what the crazy capacity on weekdays is doing. So we went, like I said, we went to Studios on Monday. We got there at 10:30 maybe or something like that. And we wanted to go.
Did you have a boarding group?
We did have a boarding group, yeah. So we got a boarding group. It was 85. So we weren't in a hurry to get to Studios. So we got there at like 10:30. Rise was down, and so we had to leave. We had to leave by about 3 o'clock because we had dinner reservations. So we had to leave by 3 o'clock. Well, Rise was down and up and down, and they only got to boarding group like 50 by 3 o'clock. So we didn't ride it at all. But that wasn't even the story that I was going to tell. I mean, I've ridden it before. Whatever. The story that I was going to tell. So we get there like at 10:30, and we figure, we'll go get the tachos from Woody's Lunchbox. And so we're walking into the park, and we're going to mobile order and go pick it up. And they give you return windows, right? So like if a location is really, really crowded, the return window is further off. So at 10:30 in the morning, the return window, if you would place a mobile order at 10:30, you couldn't actually go and pick up your order until 2:40 in the afternoon. Now, that tells me either there's way too many people in the parks, there's nowhere near enough counter service restaurants open, or both, right? Or for some reason, there's enormous demand for tachos and no other food in the park. I will say that Pizza Rizzo had immediate availability for mobile order. We ended up eating lunch at ABC Commissary, which was a 40-minute wait to get the mobile order. So, there's absolutely, I think, a lack of restaurants, and why Disney has not opened more restaurants over the time, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
But with everything being like forced mobile order, and if everything is, booked up, you can't eat. Right? Like you could
So what do
you
you
could
do?
get a pretzel or a churro, but you
Popcorn.
can't actually eat a meal. You can't actually eat a meal at lunchtime. You'd have to wait like 2.5 hours, which I've never seen that happen in all the times I've gone until this trip. So to me, again, that means either there's way more people in the parks than normal, or they need to get more restaurants open, or else, and this is what I think is absolutely the case, is that they need to make the restaurants more efficient, because their mobile order system and the restaurant fulfillment is the worst possible efficiency I could ever imagine. It's just absurd. Somehow, and I don't know how, but somehow it's slower than when you used to just stand in line at the register. Right? Like standing in line at the register was slow. Like you go and I don't mean slow like the lines. I mean you order your food at the register, and then after a couple minutes you make it to the counter. And then at the counter, well, they have to ask you who you are or what your order number is, because they don't know. Then they have to go find your ticket, and it's like 10 different random people are serving all, like there's no order to it at all. They have to find your ticket, and then they go figure out and assemble your food on the plate or on the tray that you ordered. So there's no real point in actually separating like the ordering and the cashier from the pickup of the food, because they don't utilize any of that time to increase efficiency.
And it always says your order is ready at this counter. And you say, okay, my order's ready at counter number 3. I'm going to go to counter number, and it's definitely not ready, and it really doesn't matter number you went to.
Not only is it not ready at counter number 2, but you get to counter number 2, not only is your order not ready, but the person at the counter has to look at your order number and then punch it into a system in the back that prints out a receipt, and then they go and collect the food that's on the receipt. So when it says your order's ready, it doesn't mean your order's ready. It means you can now go to counter number 2 and show them your mobile order, and then they'll go start to assemble your order and give it to you. That's what that means. That's the absurdity of the system, of how slow it is. It's just ridiculous. And so the other thing that's really sort of annoying, and this didn't happen to us, but it's happened in the past, like you go and you get your food, and then like your kids either, I don't like this, or I want something different, or they eat it and they're like, I'm still hungry, get me something else. Well, you're stuck with mobile order. None of those are an option, right? Like if there's a 40-minute mobile order wait, that's none of those are an option. You can't do any of that. So you're stuck. It's just kind of the whole system and the way that it's set up. You'd think the mobile order would be like super efficient. And it's completely the opposite. And like, so I go to my local McDonald's, right? And I mobile order, and I put in my order, and I get there, and usually the drive-through line's really long. Like if it's breakfast or lunchtime, the drive-through line's really long, like 12 cars in the drive-through. So I go park in one of the parking spots for curbside pickup, and it comes out in like 2 to 3 minutes. Like literally a third of the time I would spend in the drive-through line, I get my order with mobile pickup curbside, and it's great. And no one else does this. And well, first of all, I don't know why no one else does this, but I don't think anyone else mobile orders either, for the most part. And I don't know why they don't do that. Like I've seen people I turned into McDonald's behind a car today, Car turns in. I turn in behind them. They get in the drive-through line. Then they decide the drive-through line is way too long, and they just leave. In the meantime, I'm parked in the curbside pickup spot, and it comes out in like 3 minutes. Like, why is there not some way, instead of like waiting for Disney to tell you go pick it up at window number 2, why is there not a way where like you can go in there and punch in like McDonald's app says, you click, hey, I'm here, and then they start making your food? Like, Disney could do that, and then you get a message that says your food's ready for pickup at window 2, and it's actually there at window 2. It's not like you have to wait 5 minutes at window 2 for the guy to go collect your food. So,
devil's advocate, do you think maybe because obviously if they do that, it's not like McDonald's where, I mean, granted you don't have to be within proximity of McDonald's, but chances are you're not going to order until you're fairly close, because then you click I'm here. Do you think maybe they are just worried about, especially popular restaurants like Satuli or something, just getting an overrun of orders if they do it that way, and then still encountering the same problem?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure the reason that I couldn't place a mobile order at Woody's Lunchbox for 4 hours is because they had too many orders. But the reason they had too many orders, well, the reason isn't that they had too many orders, it's that they had too many orders to fill in a certain amount of time. And that's either because A, they got too many orders, or B, they're just really, really damn slow. And obviously, the more efficient the system works, the more orders they could fill in a particular period of time. And that's where they need to improve.
I think the smaller locations have it worse too, Jason. Like the Woody's Lunchbox location is terrible.
Horrendous.
It's always
been
bad. But we stayed at Contemporary the week after Easter, and Contempo Cafe was great. Like when it said your order's ready, you got in the line, and there it was. So we had no issues with Contempo Cafe, or really Cosmic Rays was pretty good too. I think it's just because it's so large.
So we ate at Gasparilla Grill one day for lunch, and we got there and we made the mobile order, and they actually have tables with numbers on, and at Gasparilla, when it says your order's ready at slot number 2, there's actually a bag with your order number on it at slot number 2, right? Like, that's how it should be done.
Nice.
Somehow they could do it at Gasparilla, and I think they used to do it at Contempo. I don't know if they still do, but that's how it worked at Contempo too. They put your food in a bag and gave it to you. So why that works that way at Gasparilla and Contempo, but they can't do it like that anywhere else, doesn't make sense to me. Unless they're too cheap to pay for bags. I don't know. But you would think... Right, like you would think when it says your order's ready at window number 2 that you'd get to window number 2 and your order would be there. But that's not the case at most of the counter service locations in the parks. So that's kind of a rant for this week. And I think I mean, certainly part of it, and this was incredibly apparent at Woody's Lunchbox before COVID. A large part of it is that these locations weren't built with mobile order in mind, right? And so Woody's Lunchbox had 2 registers and 2 windows, and there wasn't a place to pick up mobile orders. So most of the time they shut down one of the registers, and then there was 1 window for mobile order and 1 window for regular. And the problem is that the mobile order line was 12 people deep to get your food, because you get in that line, you have to go up to the window, you show them your mobile order, then they punch it in the system, and it prints out a ticket, and then they collect your food and give it to you. It's not the way the system is supposed to work. It's not. So that's if they... I had thought at the beginning that the forced use of mobile order... because of COVID was going to be something that would be great, and it would get everybody to do it. Because you're forcing people to do it, it's going to decrease the learning curve for everybody. because they actually have cast members that show you how to mobile order. So I thought this is going to be great, because then when they get back to full capacity, they'll have this mobile order system worked out, and it'll be super quick, and you'll never have to wait in line for food again. I think it's worse. I think it's worse now than it was before. And so my positive outlook on mobile order is going to be is basically the opposite of what I thought was going to happen. Is this is all just making it worse. And so anyway, yeah, Cosmic Rays isn't too bad because they have a lot of counters, right? So the more counters you have, the more
the easier,
right? Like the more people you can have assembling orders and giving them out. But at something like ABC Commissary, where there is, I think, only 3 or 4 windows, that's a much bigger problem. Cosmic Rays has like 12. And obviously Woody's Lunchbox is 2.
I think
I
it
will
just
say
shows
that
that especially for restaurants that weren't designed with it in mind, you can't go to one extreme or the other. You can't do,
right.
The restaurant should be what they were designed to be. Because obviously they were designed with the most efficient that they could do possible. So
no, I don't think they were, though. I actually don't think that's true. But that's a separate argument. Sure,
Woody's definitely was not. But you know what I mean? Like you can't shoehorn in things that it wasn't intended to do, and then be surprised to pieces when it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
There should be some kind of happy medium.
Well, and so here's
but that's my point. I would argue, so when everything does reopen and is back to normal, I think your original hypothesis will eventually be correct. The people that have figured out mobile ordering and are more comfortable with it will stick to mobile ordering. But a lot of people will return back to counter ordering, and life will kind of balance itself back out the way that it should be.
Maybe. I mean, we'll have to see. I also just want to say, I have no idea why everyone in the chat is quoting Jaws and has been for like the last 40 minutes. But they are, and I assume they want someone to pick up on it, so there. I still don't understand why, but sorry. So, Desi, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, well, so my very first mobile order experience was I wanted a Dole Whip. And so I did my mobile order. It said, your order is ready at counter number 1. I go up to counter number 1, and I waited like 10 minutes, and I started having a panic attack, like, oh my God, my Dole Whip's going to be melted by the time I get to the front of this line. And so I was, at that point, relieved that they didn't actually make my Dole Whip when they said they did.
I mean, that makes some kind of sense,
Ice cream
right?
makes sense.
For something that has a very limited menu and doesn't take long to prepare, that makes sense. But so let me compare the way mobile order works now to the way Be Our Guest used to work. So if you remember when Be Our Guest first opened, you actually had to go. You waited in the line, and then you would order on a touchscreen, and then you would take some sort of electronic device, like a rose.
It was a rose puck.
Right? And then you would go sit down, and your order would just be brought out to you. That worked great. It was slow. But I think it was honestly slow not because they were slow with the food. I think it was slow because people were slow with ordering. Because if you've got a family of 4 and you've got to punch in your order on the screen, that could take 3 to 4 minutes. And so I think the reason it was slow was because everyone had to order on the screen and not with a cashier. But the fact that you could get a rose and then go find a seat and then they would bring your food out, that was spectacular. That worked amazingly well. And the other thing that I want to talk about is at Pecos Bills, there was a trial of a touchscreen ordering system where one of the lines, instead of the cashier, there was a touchscreen, and you could go there and you could order yourself. And it worked just like Be Our Guest, actually, where you would put your order on the touchscreen, and then you would go into the line just as if that was a cashier and not a touch screen, and you would go into the line and your order would come and they would bring it to you, and then you take it and go sit down. That worked really well too. So what I don't get is how these systems worked pretty well, and then mobile order is such a mess.
Well, at the same time, Be Our Guest, that you were having some people in line in the library touching in their orders, you could pre-order on the website
They
the
added
night
that,
before.
yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were doing both. And so I think what your theory is correct. So you had some people do that, and you had other people wait in line, and it was not all together one thing congested.
All
The
or
other thing I
nothing,
would
yeah.
say, exactly. The other thing I would say is that, you can change your pickup window. So if you're still on a ride or you're waiting in line and you can't get there when your mobile order is ready, you can change the time of your pickup window and just push it back further. But if you don't show up, they will cancel it.
Yeah,
That
right.
happened to us.
Right, yeah. But I mean, that to me, that, again, the way that McDonald's works is that you have to touch the button that says, I'm here, prepare my order. And they
True.
don't actually start preparing your order until you do that. And actually, McDonald's doesn't actually even charge your credit card until you hit that I'm here button. So at Disney, they charge your credit card as soon as you place the mobile order, even if your pickup time is like 2.5 hours away. But so like if there was a way to say, hey, I'm here, that would be great. And if there was a way, like if there was a line for mobile order pickup, like there was at Woody's Lunchbox, you could get to the location, you could click the button that says, I'm here, get in the line, and they'll know exactly where you are in the line because they'll know exactly who clicked the I'm here ahead of you, right? And it should tell them exactly who's in the line and in what order so that your order could actually be ready by the time you get to the front of the line. Like, that just makes sense, but none of this...
They do have
Yeah.
the I'm here button, which I've clicked the I'm here, 10 minutes away there because I knew it didn't really matter.
Right, well, yeah, and see, McDonald's doesn't let you do
But
that.
that's the
McDonald's is smart enough to
problem,
figure
yeah.
out geolocation
That you actually need to be
if
there.
you're actually, like, in the McDonald's
Around
parking lot or you're still 1.5 miles away.
Chick-fil-A does the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
Chick-fil-A, yep.
I will say,
But-
Three Broomsticks, when we were there last year, they did something really cool. You mobile ordered,
Mhm.
and then you went in and they actually sat you, and not so much like a waitress, but a hostess would follow you to your table, ask you for your order number, and then go get your order and bring
Yep.
it to you.
Yep, and that works spectacularly
And that
well,
was-
too.
That works really great, too. I mean, that wouldn't work for, like, Woody's still, but...
No, but I mean, it would work for places like Pecos Bills that are indoors and
Pecos or Be Our Guest
right.
or
You
other
can control
places,
the
yeah.
you can control the entry. All that would work great. It's just that for some reason, the way that Disney does it is like the worst possible way I could imagine them to do it. It's like worse than when they had cashiers. I don't know. But anyway, so that's my rant, and probably the worst experience that I had with mobile order was this past trip when we couldn't get Woody's Lunchbox for 4 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So then we had to settle for
That's
ABC
crazy.
Commissary, which is probably the second best place because they had sandwiches that were really good.
I've had to suck it up and go with Pizza Rizzo before.
We did.
Us too.
We were absolutely willing to wait 40 minutes for ABC rather than go to Pizza Rizzo immediately. Although I will say, when you want a good alcoholic drink, Pizza Rizzo's the place to go because then there's no wait, and you can go get your drink and sit down, and that's all you have to worry about. So anyway, I don't like Disney. It's like you couldn't come up with a more inefficient system if you tried. And I feel like this is a recurring theme at Disney World. Like no matter what, Disney has a more inefficient system than anybody else could dream up. And I feel like this is a recurring theme at Disney World. Like no matter what, Disney has a more inefficient system than anybody else could dream up. And I feel like this is a recurring theme at Disney World. Like no matter what, Disney has a more inefficient system than anybody else could dream up. right? Like this was the case for bag check too, for the longest time. That bag check was tons more inefficient than it was at Universal, until this Evolve technology came out, right? And then they finally sort of caught up, and now the Evolve system, I love it. It's so great. It works so well. But the problem is that people are still dumb, and they think you have to stop, even though they have a person with a microphone that says, please keep walking, you don't need to go single file, you don't need to stop, you don't need to wait for the person in front of you, please keep walking, and they still don't. So that's a different problem. That's a people problem and not an inefficiency problem on Disney's part. They finally found a system at Disney World that's more efficient than the tourists, which you'd think that would be easy, but for Disney somehow it's not. I don't know.
No.
I don't get it. Anyway, all right, we're at 9:45, so let's spend the last 15 minutes talking about our positive thing for the night. Go ahead, Desi.
Okay, my positive issue I'm so excited about is the free roaming Groot. I think he looks adorable. I realize it's not really baby Groot like we had with Star-Lord during that meet and greet, but it's not big Groot either. It's kind of like in the middle child-sized Groot. And I feel like they just showed us Groot, but when I saw the little robot and I saw it looked like it had 3 claws, toes, I was like, oh, they're making a Grogu. So I'm calling it now. They showed us Groot, but what they're really going to give us is a Grogu in Galaxy's Edge. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I want. I'm so excited about that technology. It looks amazing.
That's a good one, as long as they actually put it to use.
Well, and I hope they put to use the Spider-Man jumping.
Oh yeah,
animatronic.
Yes.
That one was awesome.
That
would
one
be
was
cool
cool.
too.
Amazing.
All right, go ahead, Ashley.
Mine is I am super excited for Ink and Paint. Again, shameless plug. 7:30, the entertainment channel. Jill and I have been working really hard. We have a lot of great women here from WDWNT lined up to be our panelists. There's going to be something for everybody. It's not just going to be a mom's panel or, just talking about women's issues. It's really going to be still for everybody to watch. So please tune in because we are very excited to get the show up and off the ground.
I think you cheated. I don't know.
Why did I cheat?
Because you're supposed to say something positive about Disney World, not about yourself.
It's about this. It's positive news about the site. How about that?
That's fine. We need positive news around here. Go ahead, Stephanie.
So I have kind of two. So the first one is, as a former CM, entertainment CM, that entertainment is such a strong part of what Disney is at the core, and I'm glad to see that Belle was back at the Magic Kingdom, and if they can continue to do that and more characters put out before the 50th, I think that would be fantastic, and hopefully parades come back as well. But anyway, and then the second one is the Disney Wish. I could never probably afford to do it, but I love the Briar Rose and the Princess Aurora suites that are 2 stories with the spiral staircase overlooking the ocean's amazing. So that looks awesome.
That's
So
a good
great.
one. I will
Someday.
tell people. Let me figure out this. Let me find the schedule here. So next week, as I said, next week we're going to have the Disneyland reopening special on Pressing Issues, where we're going to have Katie and Rob and Allie come on and tell us all about their experiences at Disneyland. The week after, May 16th, we're thinking about doing a Disney Cruise Line special episode to talk about, the Disney Wish, but any other things about cruises now that cruises are coming back and booking is opening for DCL this month, and And so that's going to be the week after next. And so mark that on your calendar. That's May 16th. Obviously, we'll have some rants and maybe some Disney World news too, but that'll be a Disney Cruise Line special episode. And then, so yeah, now since you mentioned Disney Cruise Line, I wanted to throw that out there. All right, I guess it's my turn. Well, all right, so if Ashley can cheat, then I'm going to cheat too.
I don't think it's cheating.
I'm very excited that on Thursday, WDWNT signed a lease for a brand new studio space in Celebration, Florida.
And it's gorgeous, friends.
It's fantastic.
It's so cool.
It's very large. And we are going to probably spend the month of June moving in there. And then July 8th is going to be the first show of WDW News Tonight from the new studio space. It's very exciting. This has been a long time in the making. We've been looking for a space probably since last fall. Obviously, COVID has made things tricky, but we've been looking to get a new studio space for a long time. Like 9 months, I think we've been looking, and we finally found a space that's going to work for us with our budget, and we signed the lease on Thursday. There's actually
I squealed with excitement when I heard Celebration. I was so excited.
It's in a great location. It's right on Celebration Boulevard. So it's going to be real easy to get to from Disney World. It's going to be closer to Disney World than our old location on iDrive. It's going to be obviously a nicer place than our Roman Colosseum themed shopping center on iDrive. So it's going to be really, really fun.
And nicer than Tom's apartment too.
Much nicer than Tom's apartment. Much nicer than Tom's apartment.
No more sauna.
And yeah, it actually has 4 HVAC units in there. So we're not going to be struggling with the air conditioning like we have been in the space that we're at now. It's going to be pretty much everything that we need to do in there. We're going to be able to do. And we're going to have a little museum space. In addition, we're going to have like a dedicated set for liquid magic. That'll be like a kitchen countertop with an actual sink and stuff. So it's going to be really cool. We're going to have restrooms in our space instead of having to walk down the hall. So that's very exciting. And I'd seen pictures of the space, obviously, but I actually got to see it last Thursday for the first time in person, and it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. So yeah, that's going to be. I'm probably going to be in Orlando for most of the month of June, coordinating the move, and coordinating the construction of the new studio space. Who cleans those restrooms? That's a great question. We are responsible for cleaning the restrooms. So I believe Tom's going to make his executive assistant, Melissa, do it. And maybe Melissa will want to outsource that. I don't know, but I think it's going to be her responsibility.
You can do a chart wheel.
There's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities. Yeah, no more fire alarms. No more people pressure washing stuff downstairs while we're trying to do a show. None of that. So anyway, that's a very exciting thing that's happened in just the past week. And like I said, a lot of work went into this. A lot of effort to pull this all together. And over the next 2 months, there's going to be, or over the next month or month and a half, there's going to be a lot of work that Eric's going to be leading up to get the construction done before we move in. and then sort of get everything moved and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be fun. And very exciting. So, and it's in Celebration, which, Celebration, if you don't know, Disney sold off the downtown part of Celebration a number of years ago, but they still own a lot of the property, and so they also have a lot of control over the town, and so they control which companies are allowed to do business there, and so like they have Smart City as the telecommunications provider, which is good because it's a step up from Spectrum, which is what most of the rest of Orlando has. The problem is that Smart City, Disney owns or kind of owns or used to own Smart City. And so Smart City charges like 3 times as much as Spectrum did for the same service, and that's the problem. But hopefully the service will be better. Hopefully our internet will be better. They can't control too much if they let Tom in. Well, that's the theory, right? Like, I don't know if they know yet.
Yeah, let the conspiracy, when things start happening and going wrong, let the conspiracy theories start.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. You might hear, probably maybe around August when they figure it out, there might be like a big announcement that all of Disney's corporate offices are moving out of Celebration to Lake Nona. That's what I can foresee coming. So anyway, so I don't know. Like I said, I'll be in Orlando most of June. We're going to still do pressing issues. I'll try to do them as much as I can. I might try to make run one of or more of the pressing issues from the new space, but obviously the studio won't be built, so it'll really just be at a desk, but it'll at least will be there, which I think will be kind of cool. What does the small print in the lease say? Andy asks. There's a lot of small print in the lease, but we read through it. We had our lawyers look at it. It doesn't say anything about not allowing Tom Corliss to lease the space. That's a good thing. So anyway, all right, but that'll do it for this week's episode of Pressing Issues. Like I said, tune in next week for our Disneyland reopening special with all of our Disneyland correspondents, and then DCL special the week after. So thank you again for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the like button before you go. We got to 150 likes, which means I'm going to play Spike the Bee for everybody as our outro song.
All the bees
here.
in the chat.
All the bees in the chat. But yes, again, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Desi, for your spectacular trip report from Aulani. Thanks, Ashley and Stephanie, for being on here. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Mahalo.
Bye. Thank you.
When I find myself at Flower and Garden, looking for some food to eat, I gotta get a spork with Spike the Bee. 58 pallets of unsold units standing right in front of me. Here for his 5th straight festival, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee. Perfect for any food type, Spike the Bee. And while it's good for soup and chili, he's also perfect for poutine and Tupelo honey spoon bread, Spike the Bee. Plastic forks and spoons are wasteful, and they can't ever hope to be that versatile festival flatware, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. For blood orange margaritas, Spike the Bee.
How do you eat that with a spork?
Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the bee, yeah, spike the bee. Disney hopes you'll finally purchase Spike the